Goeiemôre liewe vriende. Ons het gister geëindig waar Jahoua en Abraham langs mekaar staan en uitkyk oor Sodom. En ons het onsself gesien in die voetspore van Abraham. Staan ons baie keer langs Jahoua en kyk uit oor ons stad of ons dorp. En bid ons regtig, smeek ons regtig vir ons stad en vir ons dorp. Verstaan ons regtig ons God se hart wanneer hy kyk en hy sien die mense soos Abraham wat hom liefhet en hom dien met hulle hele harte nie. Hy soek na sy kinders, sy verlore skape, wat net moet luister, Shema Israel. En hy soek na mense wat langs hom kan staan, en sy hart kan hoor. Joshua se hart kan hoor. En as jy gaan kyk na Paulus, Petrus, Johannes, hoe hulle harte ook verander het om soos Joshua te wees en op die einde van die dag hulle lewens gegee het terwille van sy naam en terwille van die boodskap van sy naam. Volg ons so in Vader Abraham se voetspore. Kyk ons so uit oor ons stad Sodom en Gomorra en smeek ons so voor ons God, vir ons medemens. So ons gaan vanoggend aan Genesis 19 vers 1 tot 14. And the two cherubs came into Sodom at evening, and Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom, and Lot saw, and he rose up to meet them, and bowed his face to the earth. So the two men that left Jahoua and Abraham was two normal angels. Lot sat in the gates of Sodom. Lot sat in the gates of Sodom. It was custom for the leaders and judges to sit in the gate. You will remember even Boaz sat in the gate when he and Ruth's kinsman redeemer were negotiating. Every city or town's judges or leaders were sitting in the gate. That's where they had their meetings and their negotiations and their cases. The cases were brought to them there in the gates of the city. So Lot is a newcomer to the town, and he quickly advanced to the ranks of becoming an elder, a judge, a leader in Sodom. And when we get to verse 9, we'll see that the town even were a little bit jealous and said, this newcomer, who is now a shofet, which means judge, he wants to tell us what to do. So Lot was a judge sitting in the gates. And as the Torah instructs, he is just as hospitable as Abraham, meeting and greeting these two men with the utmost respect. I'm not sure how could he have known that they were angels? I don't know, but at this stage, he's bowing in front of them, just like Abraham did. And I mean, he was willing to give his life. So I'm not sure if he really knew that these were angels. Let's read verse 3. And he much urged them, and they turned into him and came into his house. And he made a feast for them, and he baked unleavened matzos, and they ate unleavened bread. They didn't want to follow him. They said they will just stay on the street. And he would have done his job by just asking once for them to come and stay with him. And if they declined, that was their choice. So it would have been fine. He would have been under absolutely no obligation. But he pressured them. And I don't think he pressured them only because he was hospitable, but I think he knew that if they stayed in the street, they will surely be raped by the men of Sodom. And that's why he urged them to come into his house. And just amazing, the feast of Yahuwah, the feast of unleavened bread, hundreds of years before the Torah was written, Lot served them matzah, in the Hebrew, unleavened bread. There's only one time in the whole year when we eat unleavened bread. There's no reason to bake unleavened bread. It is not as nice as normal bread with yeast in it. But there's a feast. And it's Pesach. And you remember when Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt. What saved us? The feast of unleavened bread, Pesach, the lamb that was sacrificed, and the bread that was baked without leaven. Both the lamb and the bread without leaven is the body of the Messiah, of the lamb that's slain for our salvation. And here, just like in Egypt, Lot was serving and eating unleavened bread, showing us this is the period, the time, the season, the feast of Pesach and Chag Matzot, unleavened bread. Here's a clear indication that Lot was familiar with Pesach and he was celebrating it. And I think it is absolutely amazing that the night before total destruction of Sodom, Lot was celebrating unleavened bread. Just like the night before destruction in Egypt, Israel was celebrating unleavened bread. And will we return to God, the God of Abram and Lot, and the God of Moses and Israel, and will we celebrate unleavened bread while we are awaiting the destruction of the earth in the last days, after we've pleaded with our countrymen and our family and our friends, and like the sons-in-law of Lot didn't want to listen, they might not listen to us either. But it doesn't mean that we stop obeying him, because in this, Lot and his family, the only family in this whole town celebrating Pesach, shows to me a very clear sign of the people that will be safe and that will be kept safe, not raptured, but kept safe during destruction and during the tribulation, just like in Egypt, just like in Sodom, just like Noah with the destruction of the earth, kept safe. Verse 4. Before they lay down, even the city, the men of the city, circled the house, from the young to the old, all the people from all the quarters. They're surrounding the house, young and old. Really? What kind of people? Young people, old people, from every quarter, rushing to this house where these new strangers, these visitors have come in. What kind of people are these? Old wise men, most of them fathers and grandfathers. What kind of perverse people? How can you be a father and a grandfather and you want to fornicate with another man, and you want to kill Lot because he doesn't want to give you these men? And yet Abraham prayed for this town. Young men, boys, supposed to be innocent, gathering around this house, wanting to rape these visitors. Don't. What has the world come to? Because what are we seeing in today's society? What are we seeing when we look at Hollywood and all the filth and the garbage and the rubbish, the homosexuality and the lesbianism on every movie, in every song, on every advertising board, from every quarter. They came from every quarter of the town. Where in the world was Jehovah supposed to get at least 10 righteous men as Abraham prayed? How was he supposed to get even just 10 men if the wickedness in this city is both old and new, young and old, and from every quarter? Where is he supposed to get righteousness? Verse 5 to 8. Read that for yourself, but I don't understand why on earth a father would offer his daughters to be raped instead of unknown men. The only explanation is found in Lot's words: do to my daughters what you want, but leave these men alone, because they came in under my roof. It was an utmost sign of your character if you protected and cared for people that came into your house. This is a Torah principle. As people that comes into your house, you treat them like family. Let me read for you verse 10. So these men were trying to kill Lot, to try and get to these guys. And we know these guys are angels. So verse 10, but the men put out their hands and brought Lot into the house, and shut the door. Now this for me is absolutely beautiful. The angels put out their hands and pulled Lot back into the house. See how much these angels cared for Lot. Instead of just destroying the city as was their plan, Yahuwah, and surely because of Abraham, Yahuwah went through a lot of trouble to save Lot and his family from destruction. But not only that, also protecting Lot and his family from the men of the city, who so very quickly turned against Lot. I mean, if Lot was a shofet, a judge, sitting in the gates of the town, he was a well-known man, and people used to greet him, "Hello, Lot. Good afternoon, Lot. Good morning, Lot." But just like that, they could turn against him. And the angels pulled him back into the house, and they made all the men outside the house blind, so that they groped around, not seeing where to go, not finding the door. What a great miracle. And is this something you can expect in the end times? Yahweh making your enemies blind so that they cannot find you. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is a very, very important symbolic picture of the end time destruction. And having angels visiting you in the spirit, or maybe even physically, is what I think we can expect. Hebrews 13 verse 2. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some of you have entertained angels unawares. We are being taught by the Torah that we need to look after people, even after strangers. And yes, it's difficult in this country. I'm not going to allow a stranger in my house. But if we lived in a Torah-obedient society, as Yahuwah wanted us to live, We could have opened our doors to everyone like the Hebrews have done all their lives and the Jews have done. And they showed to us, Abraham showed to us, and Lot shows to us. And here in Hebrews, Paul is telling us we should not be forgetful to entertain strangers, to help somebody in need, to give them lodging and food and look after them. For how do we know if these are not angels that has come to visit us? And it's not about how good you can do, that you can earn anything. We earn shit. We earn nothing. I'm sorry. I'm just so upset today. I'm so upset about people going lost and people claiming so much grace, but they claim that they deserve to go to heaven and that they are children of God, but they reject obedience to this God. We deserve nothing. We cannot, by keeping the Torah or by giving strangers lodging like Abraham and Lot, we cannot deserve anything. Our grace came because of the blood of the Lamb. But after your grace comes from the blood of the Lamb, how do you love? How did Abraham live? How did Lot live? They lived a kosher, obedient Torah lifestyle. And that is what made them being identified by the angels to bring out of Sodom before the destruction. That is what caused them, the angels, to put their hands on Lot and pull him back into the house and safeguard him and make his enemies blind. I'm just praying for people in your city, pleading with God, standing on the hill, looking out over your city and pleading for the lives of your family and the lives of the people in your city. And all you're getting back is, we're under grace. We can do what we want. We can just pray, Liewe Jesus, vergewe my sonde, amen, en ek gaan hemel toe, ek hoef niks verder te doen nie. This is not the way Abraham and Lot lived. They kept the Torah, they kept the feasts of God. And if we don't understand the feasts, how will we understand the timeline for the end times? Understanding and living inside His covenant of rules and regulations and instructions, like He says, this is for your life. This is so that you can live. Now that I saved you and I brought you out of Egypt, this is your life. But because Satan beguiled us in the Garden of Eden, telling us we can ignore these instructions for life, and I hear this every day. Everybody is just repeating serpent language, beguiling the lost sheep of Israel, just like the serpent, telling them you can ignore the Jewish laws, not understanding that it is not a Jewish law to begin with. It is the law of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And isn't this exactly what happened with Abraham and Lot? They were not forgetful of strangers, and they looked after strangers and washed their feet and brought them in and gave them food, and it ended up being the greatest blessing for these men ever. Not saying that we in our South African crime-ridden society can do the same, but having the same righteous and holy lifestyle as angels. I'm crying, I can't see on my screen. And having the same holy lifestyle as Abraham. The angels will find us also in the last days, visiting us, protecting us, warning us, taking our side against the whole world that is following after the lawless one, the Antichrist. Verse 12. And the men said to Lot, who is still here to you? Bring out of this place your sons and your sons-in-law and your daughters and whoever belongs to you in the city, for we are about to destroy this place. And this is wonderful. And this is exactly the type of verse that I pray over my family every day. Lot might have been the only righteous person in the house, but still the angel said to him that he can bring out his whole family. Remember Joshua, me and my house, we will serve Yahuwah. And I pray this over my family, that the righteous one, the tzaddik one, the one following, remember tzaddik, you're hooked to follow after the rabbi through the door. Tzadi, Dalet, Kof. Tzaddik, we follow the rabbi through the door. We follow him, we do what he did. We follow him, we listen to him. That's a righteous lifestyle. And you might be the only righteous one in your house, but you need to trust God that he will also save your whole family. And you don't preach to them, you pray for them, that God himself will make his word come alive in their hearts. So verse 13 said, the angels were sent to destroy the city. And I said to you that we need to understand Sodom and Gomorrah as a symbolic picture of the end times. Because when you look at the book of Revelation, you can see how when the angels were sent to Sodom to destroy it with fire, how we can see this is being prophesied for us for the last days. Revelation 8:7, the first angel sounded. And they followed hail and fire mingled with blood. And they were cast upon the earth. And a third of the trees was burnt up, and all the grass was burnt up. Revelation 16:8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. Matthew 13:41. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them that do iniquity, and his angels shall cast them into the furnace of fire. Verse 14. And Lot went out to speak to his sons-in-law, those that were going to get married to his daughters, and he said, rise up, my sons-in-law, come out of this place, for Yahuwah is about to destroy the city. But they thought that he was just joking. Lot, his wife, his 2 daughters, his 2 sons-in-law, they're almost 10. It was freaking well almost enough to save the whole city. Almost. Because Yahuwah said if he can find 10 righteous men, he would have saved the whole city. And they couldn't even find 10 men. He couldn't even find 10 men. What will he find in the last days? The end times will come. Your family, your friends, your neighbors might also be thinking that you are just joking. How terrible must it be? How terrible must it have been for Lot? knowing that everyone is going to die, and you try your best to warn them, and they just don't want to listen. Ezekiel 3 verse 17 to 19. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel, and hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me. In my saying to the wicked, surely you shall die. And if you do not warn them, and you do not speak to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, the wicked shall die in his iniquity. But I will require his blood at your hand. And you, because you have warned the wicked, and he does not turn from his wickedness or from his way, the wicked shall die in his iniquity. But you have delivered your soul. So just like Lot, we have to warn the wicked. And don't think for 1 second that it is Ted Bundy and Charles Manson and Adolf Hitler that is wicked. The Bible's definition of wickedness is Torahlessness. Even if you worship the calf at the foot of Mount Sinai, proposing that this is Yahuwah, thinking that you are serving the God of the Bible, but you are not following in his ways, that according to the Bible is wicked. And just like Lot, we have to warn, because if we don't warn, Yahweh will require the blood from our hands. How much blood do I have on my hands? Ezekiel 18 verse 21. But the wicked, if he will turn from all his sins, which he has done, and keep all my statutes, and do justice and righteousness, living he shall live. Amen. He shall not die. And for those of you who are still rejecting God's statutes and righteousness and his Torah and his laws, will you see that you need to turn from that, so that you shall not die, so that you can also be kept safe when he destroys all the wicked. Daniel 12 verse 2 and 3. And many of those sleeping in the earth's dust shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to reproach and to everlasting loathing. And those who act wisely shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and those turning many to righteousness shall shine as stars forever and ever. So just like Lot, we shall continue to try, whether people listen to us or not. It's not up to us to make people come onto the way of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is not up to us to force people to see that Yeshua is the Word of God that became flesh. But we can warn them by using the Bible, by using Bible verses, by using the examples that we have found in Genesis 1 to 19, where we are now. And if people don't want to listen, you can stop talking to them, because the Bible also says, don't throw your pearls in front of the pigs. But you never stop praying for them. You stand on the hill with Yahuwah next to you, looking out over your city and praying, begging Him to have mercy.